Hey, this is Jason Roberts for JaneFinch.com. Thanks for downloading the podcast. How She Move is an indie dance movie that screened at Sundance and was released by MTV Films. Though there are some pretty entertaining dance sequences in the movie, what's really awesome about the film is that it's set right here in Jane and Finch, and its themes connect closely with the issues important to people in our community at the moment. By the end, what we have is a film with a message worth listening to. In the interview that follows, I speak one-on-one with How She Move director Ian Rashid by telephone from his home in London, England, and discuss his feelings about the movie, his special personal connection with the main characters in the film. Plus, I find out how She Move strives to be a movie that delivers something deeper than a dance movie. Stay tuned after the podcast to listen to Jane and Finch and by the Smugglers that was featured on the movie soundtrack. So first off, congratulations on being nominated for the Shaw Rocket Prize for How She Move.
Thank you.
Now, How She Move is a film about step dancing, but it's also a film that speaks a lot about community, specifically between one's community and one's family, and how the interplay between the two kind of work together in shaping the moments in our lives that determine how we see ourselves in the world and our goals. Would you tend to agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the film is also about a young woman whose family no longer believes in the power of their community to actually help them and enhance their lives. And through a series of circumstances, Brea, our heroine, is forced to come back to the community that she's trying to leave behind, and actually reconsiders and in the end reclaims it. And then brings the rest of her family in line with that.
Right. Now, many people today often blame the media for manufacturing stereotypes about black youth. How did working on a film that really focuses on black teens sort of factor into your vision as a director in terms of how you wanted the final version of the film to come across with the audience?
Well, I grew up in a very mixed neighborhood racially, and there was a huge black component to that community. And in London, where I live now, it's similar, and with similar issues where, there's a huge focus on crime and gangs, and black kids are often characterized as being, bad apples. But I know that the reality is something quite different. Sure, there's conflict and there's problems. There often are in poor neighborhoods, but I think it's always dangerous and a mistake to racialize that. I'm all too aware of all the great kids out there who are trying to kind of get ahead and move on and do good things with their lives and who give back. And I wanted to focus on that in our film. There was, by necessity, in the script that Anne-Marie Moret wrote, mention of gangs and crime with black youth, but I didn't kind of want to build it into the walls of the movie. I wanted it to be in the deep background, and I wanted the focus very much to be on the kids who are just trying to get on with their lives. And even, if possible, try and create a context for the kids who have kind of gone off the track.
Okay, now you mentioned Anne-Marie Moret, and for those who don't know, she is the screenwriter for How She Move, and Anne-Marie actually attended York University and based How She Move off a short film called Step-In that she made on step dancing while attending York back, I think, in the 90s. Have you seen this short film, Step-In?
No, Anne-Marie wouldn't show it to me. She was feeling too kind of shy about it, and so I never actually got to see it. But the whole film kind of was kickstarted by Anne-Marie's passion for stepping. It's something that she really loved and believed in and followed, and and it was infectious. We all kind of became huge step aficionados by the end of the movie.
Now, step dancing is an art form that the characters in the film use to express themselves and ultimately define themselves by among their circle of friends. I know you expressed yourself through writing when you were young, and You've since gone on to seek professional success as a writer, primarily in the UK where you're based. What's your take on writing as a form of creative expression? Like in the process of making the film, did you start to see any similarities between the way the characters in the film use step and the way you used writing when you were young, say?
Absolutely. I mean, well, part of the reason why I wanted to do the movie was I really recognized a lot of myself in Rhea, a lot of myself growing up in Rhea. And, for her, step became a kind of outlet, a place to, life can be, life for Rhea was incredibly high pressured. There were lots of parental expectations, there was death and a lot of sadness in her life. And yet she was really motivated to do well, so much so that I think she kind of put herself on this kind of really fast engine and moving forward, and never kind of really stopped to take a moment for herself, to decompress, to express what was inside, as you say. And I think Step provided that for her. And writing certainly did that for me. I was the child of new immigrants. Actually, we were refugees when we came to Canada, and life was hard. And along with the usual pressures of being a kid, there were sort of financial and familial pressures as well. And writing was something that was just mine, that was a little corner of my life that no one kind of could gain access to, and it was a place where I could unburden myself and also kind of experience joy and excitement and hope. I think in many ways it saved my life.
Would you like to see more young people today writing?
Yeah, although I'm hugely encouraged. I think the way technology has moved on since I was a kid, with the advent of the internet, sort of means that kids have to write more. They want to write more. I mean, even if it's just an email or a text or blogging, there just seems to be much more of a kind of impetus on textual communication, on the written word, and that excites me. And I think we're going to find a whole bunch of new forms of expression through writing. Because of all this technology. I think there was a time about 20 years ago when kids weren't reading and writing anymore. It was a real drag for them. And I think new technology has kind of reignited the way we perceive reading and writing. And to me, that's really exciting.
Okay, now you mentioned you and your parents moved to Toronto as refugees, and you were born in Tanzania and raised in Flemington Park in Toronto. So you can obviously connect with the main character, Rhea, like you'd mentioned before, being a child of immigrant parents and the sort of unique challenges that it poses for kids in that situation today. Now, do you feel that being a child of immigrant parents can prevent first-gen kids teens from making the kinds of risks, taking the kinds of risks that Rhea faces and ultimately takes in the film?
Absolutely. I think there's so much pressure on first-generation kids to do well, to create a better life for themselves, to sort of make peace and rationalize their parents' journey, to validate their parents' journey. That was certainly true for me. And, when you choose a career in the arts, you're basically facing, in the first instance, a lot of rejection, poverty, not the kind of status you'd get from being a professional. I think that's hard on parents. And most kids are aware of the sacrifices their parents make and want to do good by them. I think the other reality is that and it's getting better, but when I was growing up, there were no people of color in the entertainment industry, and there were no kind of role models or paradigms that we could follow, and so it seems like an even greater risk because nobody had done it. But fortunately, that's changing, and I think with those examples in place, the pressure will be off those kids, and that there will be evidence of people actually making it and living good lives and contributing. And hopefully, we'll be sending our most talented kids into some of those careers.
The film is set in Jane Finch, but it would probably surprise a few people to know that Hamilton, Ontario, actually substitutes in for some of the exterior shots. What was the reason behind this?
Well, did you buy it? Did you buy that it was Jane and Finch when you watched it?
I'm sorry?
Did you buy that it was Jane and Finch? Or did you know Jane and Finch too well?
Oh God, I've been here since I was 2, so I instantly knew the locations, not to be familiar. Though when I was watching it, I actually watched it when it first came out, and then I watched it again recently. And the first time I watched it, I remember being a little bit confused because it was really close, but I could tell something was off.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they're very, very close.
Yeah, I mean, we had to shoot in Hamilton for simple financial reasons. We were a very low budget film, and Hamilton at the time was offering tax credits to people who wanted to film there. They were trying to build up the local film industry. So we saved a bundle by shooting there. But I really wanted, I think Jane and Finch has a very specific landscape, and in a way, I think it's almost kind of elegant landscape, the way that the buildings are sort of isolated from each other, and they're tall, and I think visually it looks actually quite spare and very atmospheric and evocative, and I wanted to try and capture that in Hamilton if possible. So we really scouted around a lot until we found buildings that sort of evoked that same kind of bleak elegance that Jane and Finch has in the winter sometimes. I hope we got close.
Yeah, it's a very close match. Now, the Jane Finch community has for a long time suffered a negative image among the public, that residents of the area attribute to the way that the local press covers news about what goes on here. Now, efforts to change the image have been pretty well documented in many cases. Kind of positive imaging efforts have been pretty successful, like JaneFinch.com, for instance, has turned out to be a great success. Now, How She Moved depicts Jane Finch not as, some kind of American-style ghetto, which I think makes the film feel different somehow and sets it apart from other films in the same genre. Now, how do you think the Jane Finch neighborhood and Jane Finchers come off to outsiders watching the film?
Well, I think outside of Toronto and outside of Canada, people don't know what Jane and Finch is. I mean, perhaps they do elsewhere in Canada, but not outside. And I think people were sort of fascinated by the world. Americans knew that it wasn't the States, but there was lots that was familiar. There were black kids, there was music, there was dance, but there was first of all the kind of Jamaican inflection that ran through the movie, which I think makes it very specifically more likely to be Canada anyway than the States, because there's such a significant community in Canada, and in Toronto particularly. And I think what the film did was it opened up interest in Jamaican culture and also that aspect of Canada, because beyond Canada, people really perceive Canada as being white. I know that it's a big PR campaign to talk about Canada as being the most multiracial city in the world, but when I was showing this film to people in the UK, for example, everybody was really surprised that there were black people in Canada. The perception is that it's predominantly white with maybe a handful of immigrants. So, I kind of hope that perception of China, because the film opened in every territory in the world just about, I'm hoping that perception of Toronto and Canada has changed. But obviously, Jane and Finch is much more than its crime rate. There's a lot more going on, and I hope that and your website and films like ours and other kind of cultural initiatives, I hope will go a long way towards counterbalancing that perception. It's more than that, and it should be perceived as that, but it's unfortunately only the bad stuff that hits the headlines.
There's a gentrified kind of rebranding that's happening right now with Jane Finch, and the name sort of has been morphed into the name University Heights, and it was a plan that was set in motion officially last year by a local politician who sees the name of the community, changing the name of the community as one way to improve the image of the neighborhood. Now, reaction within the neighborhood has been pretty mixed and has sparked debate over whether changing the name could really make a difference. Now, in How She Moved, Rhea is depicted as a young Jane Finch neighborhood resident who is striving hard to get a good education in order to get out of the community. There's a scene in the film with another character, Michelle, where we learn that Rhea thinks moving out of Jane and Finch is essential to sort of achieving a better life for herself and for her family. Now, in light of all that's been happening regarding this kind of rebranding stuff, I was interested in finding out what your take was. You know, do you think young people from the neighborhood should be working hard towards staying here to build a kind of better Jane Finch? Or do you think Rhea's goal of getting out has its merits? You know, do you think, I guess in other words, what I'm trying to get at here is, do you think that the film sends a message that success for people from Jane Finch means moving away from their community instead of working towards improving it?
Well, you know, I'm now of kind of two minds about it. And initially, when we first made the movie and it showed at Sundance, it had a different ending to the one that's there now. Initially, Rhea, after she finds out that she got the scholarship to go to the private school, decides that she will in fact reject it and stay in her community and continue on. And you know, we showed the movie at Sundance, which was mostly white, middle class, older audience, and people loved it and loved the ending. And we kind of went there because, you know, the filmmakers believed that that's, well, I'll speak for myself. I certainly believe in that philosophy. That I think, you know, one of the things that really hurts local schools right now is that the smart kids all get shipped out and either go to private school or the parents somehow get them into other neighborhood schools where, you know, which are considered better and more privileged, and there's a kind of brain drain that happens. And I think that's really sad, because I think smarter kids and more talented kids kind of help themselves. You know, and I grew up in I went to what's now called Mark Garneau Collegiate in Flemington Park, and it was an incredibly impoverished school with lots of poor kids and lots of language issues and problems. But you know, we continually did very well academically. We had kids who, you know, won national contests and got into medical school, and I think it's the kids that stayed behind and did well who kind of raised the bar and made it better for future generations. And that's sadly changing now. You know, the talented kids are being shipped out. But going back to the film, you know, what happened was that when we showed the film to audiences and tested it, the one thing that overwhelmingly bothered young, you know, audiences of color in particular was that Rhea had a chance and didn't take it. And it turned them off the movie, and they didn't believe it. They didn't believe in it. And it got to a point where, you know, my personal beliefs about kids staying and giving back sort of they began to feel very kind of colonial, like I was telling people what they should think and what, you know, and even our characters what they should believe in. So in the end, I kind of agreed to change it because it seemed to be, you know, what our audiences believe and wanted in. But I'm kind of two minds. I understand why they feel that way, and I understand why, you know, an opportunity is something that should be grabbed. But deep in my heart, you know, I really believe that things don't get better unless we get to keep the smart kids at home and, giving back as much as they're taking.
The dance sequences at the end of the film are pretty impressive. I know that you guys reshot the last dance sequence, mainly the last scenes of the dance sequences, and I just wondered what it was like working on those dance scenes with So You Think You Can Dance as Trey Armstrong and pop singer Sean Desmond. Are you still in touch with any of the other cast members?
Yeah, we're all very much in touch with each other and trade news, and it's great to see everybody doing so well. I mean, when other than Sean, the cast was pretty much completely unknown. Rutina Wesley, our lead, this is her first acting job, and Trey had done choreography and bits of dancing, but this was her first kind of significant acting job. It's great to see that the film has kind of been a launching pad for everybody. Shooting that final scene was a lot of fun. Initially, as I mentioned, we were incredibly low budget, and I never had more than 2 or 3 hours to shoot any one dance scene, whereas in a big Hollywood movie you'd get like a week. The finale, which you so need in a dance movie to be kind of bigger and grander and more emotional, as well as kind of more acrobatic and flashy than all the numbers that came before, wasn't really earning its punch. And when the film got bought by Paramount, we had a chance to redress that and really make it much bigger and a way to punctuate the movie. So it was and it was great because we were sort of properly resourced and we had a bigger crew and extras, and so we could really kind of we could really get a taste of what it would be like if we'd worked that way all the way through. It was a lot of fun.
Do you have any helpful advice for aspiring Jane Finch filmmakers or first-generation filmmakers?
Well, I think my big advice would be just keep writing, get a hold of digital video cameras, make stuff, keep trying things out. Go to movies, even movies that aren't necessarily your taste or something that you'd go to normally. Use the Toronto Film Festival to really kind of learn about the range and distinctiveness in filmmaking from around the world, and just try and find your voice through all that exploration. I think in the end, filmmakers that end up doing well are ones that have a distinctive voice and have the kind of confidence and ability to kind of push that through. Because there's a lot of people out there who want to be filmmakers, and you need to stand out. And I think the best way to stand out is to be the most yourself you can be. But that requires confidence.
What do you think of JaneFinch.com?
Well, I wasn't that familiar with it before, and I've been checking it out since we met. I'm really impressed. It feels like a really professional operation, and I think it's a great opportunity for residents to kind of make their mark by getting involved with it. I was just really, really, really impressed. I haven't seen such a strong and entertaining and informational community website, like this before. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Well, everyone here at the website wants to thank you for taking the time out to chat with us, so thanks.
My pleasure.
This has been a JaneFinch.com production. To pitch story ideas, contact webmaster@jane-finch.com. This podcast was written by Jason Roberts and produced by Paul Nguyen. Thanks for listening.
They know from day spot a killer put his life on pause. This is the Enterprise. Nastyville.